Hello beautiful, welcome back to my channel. My name is Bettina and I'm the makeup enthusiast. In today's video, I'm going to be sharing with you some eyeshadow palettes that I almost purchased in 2021, but I didn't. Some of these are still kind of on my wish list, or I might have put them on my Christmas wish list. I may still pick them up in sales in the future. I'll let you know all those details as we get into it. Before you get into the video, however, if you are new around here, I hope you would consider subscribing down below if you do want to keep up to date on all my videos. I have a really long list. I have a really long list of eyeshadow palettes that I almost purchased in 2021. If I did purchase all of these, by golly gosh, I would be broke. I've gone through like Instagram right from January through to now. On Instagram, I've saved all of the palettes that I had my eye on or I was interested in. I thought that I was going to pick up and I decided not to. Let's start off with this palette right here. This is the Milk Cosmetics Blueprint Stack, which was made into a palette. Now, I really like wearing blue eyeshadow. I think it's probably closely in line with purple. Purple is probably my all-time favorite eyeshadow color to wear, followed closely by blue. So that is why I was really interested to pick this palette up. First, when the blue stack came out, I was really intrigued because I liked the like really intense blue shimmers in the palette. So I was very intrigued by the stack when it was in a stack. And then when it came out in the palette, I was a lot more interested because I do prefer the palette system over the stacks. I think I have two of the stacks in my collection and I just never reach for them because the whole stack system, it's just not really my jam. I did decide not long after it came out that I didn't totally need it. So instead of purchasing the palette, I decided that I was going to try and dupe it with my collection. And I did manage to do that. If you do want to see that video, I will leave it linked up in whichever corner it is. I think it's this corner. I didn't spot on dupe it, but I duped it enough for my liking for me not to need to get this palette. The next one is the Flight Club palette from Menagerie, and I literally just finished saying the purple eyeshadows is one of my favorite colors to work with. Here in this palette, we have like a purple color story. It's like a purple dream. I was really interested in this palette. I do have one other palette from Menagerie and I have one of the empty magnetic single palettes from Menagerie, and I do really like the palette I have. I think I have the Feral palette. They have always had really high costs when it comes to shipping. By having the cost of the palette fairly high, adding shipping on top of that, and then exchanging all of that cost from US dollars into Australian dollars, it's just so much money for me and I just can't justify it. So I decided to not get this palette, and I decided that I had enough purples, or I had purples in my collection, that I could easily dupe this palette and I could easily find this palette in my collection with what I've already got. And to be honest, I haven't really thought about this palette until now. Oh, okay. The next one, another palette from Menagerie Cosmetics. This is the Menagerie Cosmetics Serenity palette. This was a collaboration with Annette from Annette's Makeup Corner. I was really interested in this palette. I think the packaging, the front cover of the palette is absolutely gorgeous. It is so well done, in my opinion. And the color story, I liked, but I didn't love. But I liked it enough to buy the palette to support the collaboration. Since then, however, there was a big drama, or there has been a big drama with USPS in America shipping to Australia. Australia's like one of the countries that is like blacklisted with USPS at the moment. And I know there's a lot of my Aussie subscribers that tried to purchase this, and there was a big like kerfuffle. I think Menagerie ended up shipping them out, and then they got held at one of the USPS sites for a while and then shipped back to them because they refused to ship them to a lot of other countries. Australia is not the only one. There's a big long list. So they ended up having to refund all of their, or most of their international customers because of the whole drama with the shipping. So I'm kind of glad I'm kind of glad that I didn't try and get my hands on this palette because I would have been really mad. I would have been stinking mad. The next one is a Natasha Denona palette, and this is the Natasha Denona Zendo palette. I was like this close to purchasing this palette. I saw the swatches. They really grabbed my attention. And then I started seeing like the marketing images of like the makeup looks that they did on the models for the promos, and my jaw like dropped. I was like, damn, that is like a gorgeous eyeshadow look. Absolutely stunning eyeshadow looks that they did with this palette. So I was very intrigued to pick this one up. It very much caught my attention, and like I said, the eyeshadow looks that Natasha Denona did with this eyeshadow palette for the campaign really, really drew me in and grabbed my attention. I don't like paying full price for Natasha Denona eyeshadow palettes, so I always wait until like they go on sale. And with this one, by the time it went on sale, I was tossing up between the Zendo and the Circo Loco, and for me, the Circo Loco won out, so I purchased that one instead of the Zendo palette. This is still on my list of palettes that interest me. However, I don't think I will pick it up. Oh, this palette is one that I have gone back to over and over again. I even put my little email address into the reminder box on Cult Beauty for the restock. This is the Patrick Tarr Major Dimension palette, and I also added this to my cart and exited like a couple of times before I decided that I didn't need it. It is a neutral palette. Like at the end of the day, it's not basic, but it's basic, if you know what I mean. It is stunning. The looks I've seen people do using this palette are really, really pretty. And I think it's a little bit interesting having those cream shadows at the end there as well. Patrick Tarr has recently come to Sephora Australia. Prior to like, I think it was last month or a month and a half ago, we could only get Patrick Tarr through Cult Beauty. And again, with the shipping would have been free, but with the exchange rate, it did make it a little bit more expensive for me. So I was holding off to see, you know, if I could get it in a sale or on a discount or something like that. And then lo and behold, Patrick Tarr announced that he was coming to Sephora Australia. We don't have access to his entire range just yet in Australia at Sephora, which is a little bit disappointing. But I think as time rolls on, we probably will get a little bit more access to his range, which I'm very excited about. And that also means that I can purchase his stuff during like the 20% off Sephora sales, which I think is fantastic. Next is the Glam Light and Michaela J collaboration palette. This is the, did it have a, I don't know if it had a name or not. No, I think it's just the collaboration palette. So I have been wanting to try Glam Light for a very long time, but I don't like the weird shaped palettes that they come out with, the weird bulky packaging. Not a massive fan of that. So I saw this and I was very interested because it was a nice little neat square palette. It had an array of colors in it. Ever since the ice cream palette came out, I was always keen on picking that one up. I was always intrigued. If I could get it on a good sale, I was always leaning towards picking that one up. And this one came out around the time, I think it was about mid-year, when a lot of companies in Australia were doing like stock take sales or end of financial year sales. So I was able to get the ice cream palette. Mind you, it was a fucking drama, and I purchased it not long before this palette came out. So I decided that I would just wait to see if I liked the formula from the brand before I went ahead and picked this one up. And then I was watching some videos where people were comparing this palette to other palettes in the Glam Light range. And most of the colors that I liked in this palette were colors that were quite comparable to colors in the ice cream palette. So I decided that I would not pick this one up and just stick with my little ice cream palette. The Sydney Grace and Temptalia range. So this range came with 3 eyeshadow palettes, and then the brand did a darker and a lighter version of the palettes. So I guess in total for the whole collection, there was actually 6 eyeshadow palettes, but there was only like 2 sets of the eyeshadow palettes. I really liked the packaging. I think the packaging was gorgeous, and that was one thing that really grabbed my attention when I first saw the sneak peeks of the packaging. When I first saw the sneak peeks, I kind of decided in my mind, I was like, yep, I'm going to be getting this because I'm going to love it. I'm going to think it's absolutely amazing. Then I started seeing all the sneak peeks of the eyeshadow palettes, and I was disappointed, to say the least. I was very disappointed. Then I saw the swatches and I just thought to myself, I'm not going to use these. It got to the point with Sydney Grace. I think Sydney Grace's free shipping threshold now to Australia is $300 US, and that's a lot of money. That's a lot of money. So up until you reach that free shipping cap, you are paying for shipping by weight or based on weight. And I do really like their stuff. I think their formula is great. If I'm honest, I was a little bit over it by the end of it. I think from memory, this was like a really drawn out sneak peek reveal. We were seeing like one shadow a week for quite a while, and by the end of it I was just like sick and tired of it. I was like, just show us the goddamn palettes. Okay, the next one is a palette that I put into my cart about 4 or 5 times, almost hit buy 4 or 5 times. I think I even a few times went to PayPal and then saw like the exchange rate and how much it was going to cost in Australian dollars, and then decided I didn't need it. And this is the Laura Lee Los Angeles Candy Skies palette. This was a collaboration with her niece. I think her niece basically came up with like most of the color story in this collection. I think this palette is really like fun, and it's got a few different like pops in there. I'm really interested in trying some stuff from Laura Lee Los Angeles. I haven't tried anything from the brand, and this was probably one of the first palettes that grabbed my attention and caught my eye. I even think I went one step further and was watching I was watching a review. I think it might have been Teresa is Dead's review, and she was like, this is actually a pretty good palette. And I think she rated one of the lip products as well. And after that, I was like, oh, I think I need this palette again now. And for like a week, I went to the website, put it in my cart, and then I decided I didn't want it. And then the next day I did it again. And I did that over and over again, like a million times, and finally decided I did not need it. Again, this is another one. Up until now, I hadn't considered this palette. When I look at the palette though, again, I'm like, oh, this is really nice. I look at this palette and I get a little bit inspired. I already see a few looks that I could create with the color story. It's back on my mind. It's back on my mind. Beauty Bay Wilderness palette. Now, this is a palette that I saw used over and over again on Instagram. I saw people mention it time and time again. Beauty Bay did like an initial launch of this palette. I think they had limited stock, and then when people that purchased it in that initial launch received it, they kept like spamming Beauty Bay to relaunch it and bring out like another restock of the palette. I think since that initial launch, it's been restocked maybe like 2 or 3 times, and you know, it sells quite well. If it wasn't for the fact that people kept saying how good this palette was, I probably would have given up on it like months and months ago. But I keep seeing people talk about this palette and tell me how good the formula is. So for that reason, I have decided to put the Beauty Bay brand on my list of brands that I want to try in 2022. I think just because green is not like one of my crazy go-to colors, that's one of the reasons why I'm kind of holding off picking this one up, because I just feel like there'll be an eyeshadow palette come out in the future that is just a little bit more my style. Speaking of Beauty Bay, when Beauty Bay announced their Christmas collection and I saw this beauty, this is the Age of Opulence palette. I was very interested in picking it up because I thought that she was absolutely gorgeous. So I almost picked it up when it released. I almost picked it up during the Black Friday sales. Obviously, where I'm going with this is I haven't actually picked it up. Now, one of the main reasons why I didn't pick this up was because I saw, I think it was Angelica Nyquist's video where she compared this palette to, I think it was last year's palette, the Book of Magic palette, and she said that she preferred the color story on that palette. And I was like, well, if you say so, then I don't need to get this one, but it's very pretty. And I think if a color story comes out sometime next year that's kind of a little bit more in line with the Age of Opulence palette as opposed to the Wilderness palette, I would definitely be interested in picking it up. Natasha Denona Retro palette. Now, I had been told by you guys for months, probably almost a year, that I needed to pick up the mini retro palette. I finally did that earlier this year in one of the Sephora sales, and turns out you guys were freaking right. It's an amazing palette, just a little mini 5-pan palette. Because of that palette, I was like, I want a bigger version of this palette. I think a bigger version of this palette would be phenomenal. And Natasha Denona went ahead and released a larger size of the retro palette. I saw the color story and I was a little bit disappointed because to me, it just doesn't really have those like green tones that are in the mini retro palette. And I was really looking forward to like an expanded version of the mini retro palette because I think it's a great color story. I think it works really, really well together, the way they've paired the colors in the mini retro palette. So I was really excited when I saw the sneak peeks. I was like, this is what I have been asking for months. What I've been asking for months. And when I saw the swatches, I was like, really? It's really quite pink and purple. So I am still a little bit interested in this palette and I would really like to see it and swatch it in store purely because of that purple aspect. I love purple eyeshadows. I'm not gonna lie, I've said that multiple times already. But if it leans too much on the pink side, then I am really not interested. So this is one that I really want to see in store. I'm still interested in it. Next we have the Wayne Goss Tourmaline eyeshadow palette. Now, Wayne and I have a beef. He doesn't know this, but I have a beef with him because goddamn Wayne keeps releasing shit that I want after I've already made a purchase. And it's freaking annoying. So earlier this year, and if you guys haven't seen it already, I have done a video where I test out almost a full face of Wayne Goss products. I think I call it that, but it ends up not being a full face. But I test out a lot of products from Wayne Goss, like the bronzer duo, one of the blush highlighter duos, an eyeshadow palette, and I also picked up a lip liner and lipstick from him. So a fairly substantial amount of his range. I will leave that video linked up in the corner if you do want to see it. But I had him on my list of brands that I wanted to try in 2021. So I had been like looking at all of his stuff all year, and I finally decided that I would make an order. I finally decided what I wanted to pick up and try from him, and I think he had two or three palettes out already that had the matte black in it, and I wasn't interested in putting the matte black in the palette. So I went with the palette that didn't have the matte black, and that was the Pearl palette. That was the only palette that he had out at the time when I made my order that didn't have a matte black in it. Then the bugger, a couple of weeks later, releases a range of beautiful nude lipsticks. After I had literally just ordered my order, I would have much preferred the nude lipsticks to try over the one that I got. The one that I got, it's still nice. It's still a good color for me, but I would have preferred like something a little bit more on the nude side as opposed to like what was in the original range. Then, not long before I received my order in the mail, this beauty of a palette gets released, and I was furious. I was livid. I just think it is so inconsiderate of Wayne to release a palette as gorgeous as this when I have already made an order from his brand. It's just rude. It's just rude. That's all it is. So needless to say, this palette is gorgeous. And as soon as I saw it, I was like, God damn, why didn't I just wait a couple more weeks? I have been like stewing on making an order from his brand through Beautylish for months and months and months. And then I finally decided to make my order. And like a month after, he already has like 2 new releases that I am interested in. So I was really annoyed at myself for not just like waiting just a little bit longer. Also annoyed at Wayne because he should have known. He should have known. And yes, I have already put this palette on my Christmas wish list. And also I watched Mel Thompson's video. I watched her video using this palette, and when I watched it, I was just like, yep, I'm sold. I need that palette. Like the looks that she created using this palette, I think were gorgeous, and I really want it now. The Glam Light Happy Hour collection, I was actually looking at, I think the green palette and the purple palette in this collection. I thought that the purple palette was really, really pretty. That was the main one that I was leaning towards. I am so glad that I didn't pick these up because I hate the packaging. When I saw the sneak peeks, it was just like the cardboard and the swatches. And I was like, oh wow, they're doing normal shaped palettes again. And I really like supporting Glamlight doing normal shaped palettes. But then I saw like the big promo pictures and I saw people reviewing the palettes, and they come in this hideous like plastic, hard plastic case with the palette inside. And I just think it's so tacky and gaudy and ugly. And I'm so glad that I didn't pick up any of these palettes because I hate it when brands do like single-use packaging like that. Next is a palette that I almost brought this last week, and it is the Lethal Cosmetics Berlin 89 collection. I really like this palette. I really like the color story, and I really like the story behind the palette. There are some colors in this palette that I so desperately want, but I wish that they sold them in a single. When I look at the palette, there's probably maybe 4 or 5 shades that I really want. The rest of the palette, I don't need, I don't want. So when I look at the swatches, it's the purple, the orange, obviously the multi-chrome. The gold looks really pretty. I think the gray would pair really well with the multi-chrome as well. So those are probably the main colors that I want out of this palette. The rest of them I don't really need. Like I don't need a black, I don't need a silver or a brown. I don't really need those colors, but I really wanted to give that multi-chrome a try. This was recently on sale through Lethal in the Black Friday sales. It came down to a fairly reasonable price in euros, but goddamn the euro to Australian dollar exchange rate at the moment is the worst. So I placed this in my cart and a couple of other things, and the order was going to be like over $300 Australian, and I was like, nope, I can't justify that right now. And then I actually found this palette on sale through Berserk in Australia. So if you guys are interested in trying Lethal Cosmetics and you are in Australia, I think Australia or New Zealand, I have a feeling Berserk shipped to New Zealand. If you want to try Lethal and you're in Australia, check out Berserk. It's Berserk. I think it's .com.au. They have Lethal, they stock Lethal. They have actually really quite a good range of Lethal products. They currently have the Berlin palette in stock, and if you are interested, they also have the Teresa is Dead palette in stock as well. So if you want to get that palette, then go check them out. Shipping is free over, I think it's like 59 Australian dollars or something like that, and they're in Brisbane and they ship out super quickly. So I highly recommend Berserk. I've had amazing experiences every time I've shopped through them. So I actually found this on the Berserk website. I think it was like 43 Australian dollars, which I think is actually a really good price for a 12 pan eyeshadow palette. However, I decided to just buy more of their singles instead of getting the palette. So I ended up, I think, ordering another like 11 or something of their singles that I don't currently have in my collection instead of getting this palette. I was tossing up throwing this palette in my cart or not. I decided against it, so it is what it is. I might still pick it up. I'm not quite sure. I don't know. The next one is another one that I was this close to purchasing, and this is the Lethal Cosmetics new multi-chrome eyeshadow palette. They only just released this in their Black Friday sales. I think it was like the 26th of November, so it is a very recent release. This is a palette that comprises solely of multi-chromes. I was very interested. I love the Lethal formula, so I was very interested in picking this palette up. I think it was like 200 Australian dollars when the exchange rate converted. When I saw that price, it hurt me a little bit. I was like, it kind of took my breath away a little bit to pay that much money for 9 multi-chromes. I thought, because I made my order through Berserk, I thought that I would just wait until it potentially pops up on Berserk and see how much it's gonna be in Australian dollars, because I often find, even with the sale price through Lethal, that with the exchange rate, it's still quite often a little bit cheaper, if not around the same price, to just purchase through Berserk. And the last palette, which is a palette that I am still humming and hawing about, this is the Hindash Beautopsy palette. I've watched a couple of reviews of this palette, and apparently the formula is amazing, like it blends itself. That sounds like my kind of palette. And I am very intrigued by the brand, like the formula. I think Hindash is a really fantastic makeup artist, and I'm really keen to try some of his products. At the moment, his products aren't the most easily accessible for me in Australia. Like, I can buy directly from his website, I believe, and I do believe he ships internationally, but I think there's like shipping and exchange and all of that. I do think that he has recently started stocking in Beautylish or Cult Beauty, something like that. So it probably will be a lot easier for me going forward to try some of his products. At the moment, he just has this palette, and I believe an eyeliner available. So I wonder if he'll ever come to like Sephora Australia or Mecca. That would be really cool if I could see it in Australia, like right in front of me. That would be really cool. But if I could get it from, say, like a brand like Beautylish or something like that, just because I have experience shopping directly through Beautylish, feel more comfortable shopping with a brand or a website that I've already shopped through. That's all. And then I could possibly pick up the Goss Tourmaline palette while I'm there. That's finally the end of my list. We've been here for forever and a day. There's a shitload of stuff this year that or just eyeshadow palettes alone this year that I could have purchased, but I didn't. My credit card thanks me dearly. I cannot imagine how much money I would have spent if I just let loose and purchased everything that piqued my interest. I could not imagine. I would be so broke. Let me know down in the comments box whether there was any eyeshadow palettes that you almost purchased in 2021. Also, I would love it if you consider subscribing down below while you were down there. That's it for this video, beautiful. I hope that you're having an absolutely fantastic day. I hope you enjoyed this mammoth long video. I hope you are staying safe and healthy and looking after yourself, and I will see you in the next video. Goodbye, beautiful.